Welcome to my channel. Traditionally in December I try to film my collection of coloring books, and as one of my favorite subject to color is cute animals, and one of my favorite artists is K.Egusa and also Nelco Neco, I decided to dedicate my first part exactly to these videos, to the books with cutest animals. Let's start with book about cats. It's by Korean artist Grace G. I think that there are at least 2 books in the series. Here I have the first part about family and actually village full of amazing cats. There is also second part where they have their uncle tiger visiting them. Unfortunately, in this book, even if I love everything here, paper, pictures, I don't color very frequently. If you ask me why, I have no idea. It's really a very sad thing. Especially I started to neglect it after I got Nelco Neco cats. Maybe that's because bigger amount of people have Nelco Neco cats, so my videos maybe are helpful when I color in that book. But in the next year I definitely intend to spend more time with this lovely book, because here we have pictures dedicated to different seasons, to the various activities of cats, so it's very interesting. Originally these illustrations were created by the artist with watercolors, so sometimes it's not very easy to decide to add more detailed fur texture on cats, or to follow example of the artist and just to add main colors to show shadows on the cat's body. Also, I love how she drew botanical elements, very lovely. If you compare them with Eri, with her very strange leaves, or with Maria Trolle, I think that these plants, flowers, bushes, they are 10 times better. And her compositions always are good. So if you can get book by Grace G, I can definitely recommend it. I tested here several pencils, and professional pencils like Prismacolors or Polychromoses work quite well here. The only pencils which totally refused to work here, it's actually Colors. Arctics, so. That was page which I did for the last winter, and I wanted to spend more budget, less precious pencils for the background for all those bricks. I tried colors and it was a catastrophe. In the end, of course, I finished everything with Prismacolors. Apart from it, I also did one picture, and only when I colored half of this page, I actually noticed that it's part of the spread. Here we have another part of the building and another beautiful square with a lot of nice buildings around. Well, good thing is that I have my video where I can check which colors I used for the bricks, so I will be able to finish the wall of the building, and I'm sure that one day I will do it. Here I also used Prismacolors. For now they are my favorite pencils on this paper. I'm such a lazy person. 10 times I promised myself that I will test watercolor on this paper, at least for the areas like sky or water, to help me a little bit to color quicker, to do some underpaint, and I hadn't tested it yet. I think that maybe I am reluctant to test watercolor here because I have quite negative experience with watercolor in my second Korean book, also about cutest animals, and this one, the day we finally met. I started to color in this book with pencils, and I quickly realized that pictures are very detailed, and it would be much easier to do at least some kind of underpaint for the background. For now, I tested watercolors here and it was a total catastrophe. Paper absorbed watercolor very quickly, even such primitive thing like to put a light blue color on the sky. I absolutely dislike how it worked here, how green color lay down here on the hills. It looked dirty. Even two colors, it was difficult to blend. Water, let me not comment the water, so it was indeed a catastrophe. After such unsuccessful start, I only colored in this book smaller pictures, like this one, where I tested my Mitsubishi Una pencils, and it was another catastrophe because Mitsubishi Una, they are totally not the best choice for this paper. Paper is too smooth. Actually, that's problem not of the book but of Mitsubishi Una pencils, because later I did pictures using budget pencils like Arteza or Sucolor. Here. And here. I think that this one was made with Arteza. Here it was mix of Prismacolors with something cheaper for the background, and everything apart from Mitsubishi Una, all other pencil brands work quite well on this paper. So in the beginning, where we have illustrations to the poem Hush Little Baby, I did two spreads. When I did these spreads, these pictures, I was a little bit confused how to connect the bottom part with quite detailed image and empty upper part where we have only rims, only the poem, and especially here where we have it in Korean, here in English. Only now, when I started to color more frequently in Ivy and Inky Butterfly, and where I invented several ways how to surround text, how to use stencils, I think that I am ready to return to this book because we have more spreads dedicated to the same poem. And I think that maybe I need to add something here because it doesn't look very well balanced. Empty white part of the page and colorful bottom part. But at least these two spreads I do love. Apart from it, I also have one page which I did with mix of Prismacolors and polychromases. It's not bad. Yes, it took me a huge amount of time. The only thing which I totally dislike here, I used too much of Posca inks, Posca pens on the tree, on the roses especially, because actually line art here is relatively delicate. Black lines, they are thin, not very obsessive, so I think that maybe I had to leave it, especially on the yellow roses, with time Posca ink, which in the beginning it looked better, but then it started to look, you know that Posca can change color, especially when it's mixed with Prisma beneath, so it can change color to absorb pigment. So now those roses which I initially loved, now I think that they are not the best looking. Maybe I need to outline them with more red color to mask that excessive ivory Posca. But I very rarely return to my old pictures. I can look at them, I can analyze them to think about my mistakes and how I can improve them, but I very rarely correct them. It's also a very lovely book, unfortunately quite rare now. If you can get it, I can recommend it again because it's full of very nice pictures. They are detailed, but at the same time compositions are very well balanced, not not many empty areas where you think how to do the background. You can see very lovely pictures and a lot of things to practice, especially things like fur, like wood, like fabric. So again, if you ask me why I don't color in it more frequently, I don't know. And of course, next books, they will be books by K.Egusa. Of course, I really want to have at least a look at the newest book by K.Egusa. I think that it's almost ready, so I hope that quite soon she will provide us with the first flip through. But for now, I mostly color in Symphony of Cute Animals, but in Mena and Debonair I also did a couple of works during this year. I think that it doesn't matter which pictures I colored this year, which pictures I did last year. I just will show you my current progress. Surprisingly, many of my finished pictures, they are in the beginning of the book. And here I have this spread, which I almost completely did with Prismacolors. Only there on the leaves, there are several polychromos pencils. I think that the work on the right is one of my best. Here I struggled a little bit with fur, but mostly because it was difficult to recognize the animal. You may laugh at me, but indeed, when you look at line art, you can see that you can do the small bear, the bear cube, and I saw other colorists who convert the animal into bear, so they did brown fur, and I saw several persons who, like myself, did fox. Actually, I asked my family, and we were divided with our opinions, bear or fox. I decided that maybe orange fur of fox would better suit the spring picture here, and maybe I exaggerated a little bit with colors of flowers, but I really love this variety of flowers, this shape of flower. It was very interesting to color, so I decided that they can be a little bit unrealistic. When I just got the book, I struggled with paper. I hoped for the paper similar to Mena Debonair, because all my K.Egusa books, they are printed in Japan, but paper in Japanese editions of Symphony and Menuet, they are different. It was a big and pleasant surprise. Now I think that I'm adjusted to this paper, and mostly I use Prismacolors here. At least they can cover paper better. But I also did several experiments with watercolor, like this background. I can't say that I love how watercolor behave here. At least as a first layer, you can put it on the paper, but you definitely need to work later with polychromoses on top of watercolor to mask some areas where there are some stains, to work on details. And polychromoses, when you work on top of watercolor, they start to look much better rather than on clear paper. And I also used here acrylic markers. That's background which I did with Arctic's marker. I hoped that I will be able to do nice plain one color background, but there are also some stains where I accidentally put like two layers where my marker brushes intersected. It was a big disappointment. Well, and since that time I'm not a huge fan of Arctic's markers. At least the set which I own, many tips are already slightly ruined. Well, but we are now talking about my books. Sorry guys, it's just disappointing when you hope for something helpful for nice art supplies and they can't help you to do backgrounds as you expected. But I do love them. Picture which I did maybe a couple of years for Easter, lovely. Maybe color of the background a little bit too intense, but again, I wanted to try marker and I tried it. This one I definitely love. Maybe it's a little bit boring from the first sight, but I actually enjoyed coloring all those cabbages and other leaves. It was fun to color those decorative onions. Well, I think that it's one of my best works here. And that's where I started to feel that, yes, I adjusted to this paper with Prismacolors, I can color on it. Maybe not as pleasantly as in Minuet, but still I can color, and it was a very happy moment. Page with a lot of poppies, where I started to feel more confident about poppies. I don't even remember how I managed to do the background. Maybe it's a blend of Prismacolors and polychromoses, but it's definitely only pencils, because I started to test watercolor only here. It's a page of shame. This March or this April I did this first layer. It wasn't bad. Yes, there are maybe not great areas, but I supposed it to be only the first layer, to work on top of it with polychromos pencils, so I was happy with my progress. Then something distracted me, maybe something, those blackouts, so I didn't have time to color it, maybe something else. So even if I do love the beginning and I know that I can do a nice page from it, it's already December. And it's waiting since March. Now it looks ridiculous to finish it. Maybe I will wait until the next March and I will do it, because the beginning is promising. I can easily add a little bit of texture on grass, on trees, and then to work on the most interesting part, all those lovely spring flowers. So yeah, indeed, it's a page of shame. But this one I really love. Since the time was when I stitched a lot, I loved some French designs where they depicted quite famous series of tableware with French authentic designs made in this Diquan style or something like this. And it was very beautiful color combo of wine red, of cobalt blue and white. So when I looked at this page, I immediately remembered about those designs, those cross-stitch patterns, and I decided that even if I can't stitch them, I can use the same color palette for the tableware here. I think that it's really lovely. I do love how I did glass vases here. And I do love how I did apples. Usually I struggle with apples, but here they were small, so I managed to do them. Page on the right, I think again that it's one of my best. I do love shading here, how I did a wall. I think that you can feel the old stones slightly covered by moss, then the intriguing red door in the middle, inviting maybe to some magical land. And I do love how I did vases here. I think that I did pretty good shading. And yeah, surprisingly again I managed to color it with Prismacolors without struggling with paper. Page on the left wasn't very lucky because here I decided to use Prismacolors together with some budget pencils like Castle Art. So background, it was very difficult to do this simple gradient from cream yellow into ochre yellow. Only when I blended it a little bit with distress inks, it helped me to mask those ugly areas where I wasn't able to blend pencils. It feels like paper was different on the right and on the left. But I wanted somehow, at least somehow, to save the background because I really love this fashionable frog. I imagine that it's frog who is living in the mansion of somewhere like Pride and Prejudice this time, because the style of the clothes is very similar. So maybe it's Mr. Darcy's frog from his pond. I think that frog is lovely. Background, it gave me a lot of suffering, even if it looks very primitive. Such a big difference. This image was very easy to color. This one, because of the paper, I was sure that I will ruin it completely. That's another one where I started to do pencil background, totally dislike it, and I decided to postpone it. Maybe later I will cover it with one of pastel watercolor paints, because now something, maybe blue is too vibrant, maybe its blend with pale sage isn't the best. I don't know, but not the best color combo. Here I did it with polychromasis, and it was also a lot of suffering. Usually I would say that polychromasis are very vibrant, but here they definitely didn't want to give their pigment, to give color. Everything looked muted. Well, I spent huge amount of time on it, trying to blend, to increase shadows. In the end I also added the most colorful elements using Prismacolors. And after this page I decided that my main pencil set here will be Prismacolors. But I continued to experiment, and here, even if backgrounds they look similar in color, the left side is done with watercolor, and it's one of the more successful attempts to do watercolor background, even if small areas where I needed more shadows or more contrast, I added later with polychromasis. Mushrooms and deers, fawns, I colored with Prismacolors. And somehow I decided that it would be nice to try and to create the same color of the background with just Prismacolor pencils. I selected this page because I love to finish spreads. It wasn't one of my favorite pictures because I dislike to color repeated elements like those umbrellas. It's not interesting for me. But I decided to do the background. You know, by itself, I love it. I think that it looks pretty nice, umbrellas look fun, and cat is lovely. But together, I think that it was a mistake to do similar color of the background on such different pictures. Here we have forest, here we have totally different style of picture. Maybe with light blue, it would look better with contrast background. But all my pictures, majority of them, they have rather blue or green backgrounds. So from time to time, I want to step out of my comfort zone. So by itself, like this one, I do love. Together, maybe not very matching. Maybe it was a mistake. Another lovely page where I managed to do very delicate pastel background, and the majority of time I spent on this texture of leaves. I wanted to make them interesting. You know that quite often on tropical leaves we have very interesting patterns, and I wanted to recreate it here. And in the same time I wanted chameleons to be green, to be able to blend them with the greenery around, but also to somehow to attract attention to them. So that's why I did those black kiver heads. I added orange and aquamarine colors to their bodies. I think that it's really a lovely page. I'm happy with it. This one, I don't remember. I think that I started with polychromasis and then switched to Prismacolors. So I do love the final look, but I remember that again I suffered with smooth blending, creating smooth gradients on the leaves. But I love to color birds, and I especially love the red one. I think that it's Prismacolors. It's an old work, I even don't remember. Here, Prismacolors, definitely. I absolutely love the spread, both the left and right side. I think that I managed to do them in quite interesting way. Here I colored many things for the first time. Those transparent glasses with cocktails, the ice inside, and those fruits, especially pineapple. It was interesting. And I think that it was the first time when I managed to do normal texture on ice cream. That was my first page where I discovered that actually pencils don't blend as well as in Minuet. That's why you can see here this slightly dirty shading when I started to use dark brown on top of various ochre and light amber colors, it didn't want to blend. It was small shock. That's one of my favorite Halloween pictures. Maybe not exactly Halloween, but we have pumpkins, we have mice who cook some magical potion. I especially love all this part. I do love how I did stones also. I think that I need to look back at my video because I do love this color combo for the stone, for the bricks. It could be quite helpful for my future colorings. Yeah, it's nice when you can look back at your works and when you have videos to check the color combos which you used. I so much wanted to do this page during this Halloween, but I dived into Nelco Neco and of course I didn't have time for this one. That's also one of my favorite works, mostly because of the contrast between this very intense ultramarine cobalt background and the rest of the elements here. I think that it's home warming party, so the bear probably is a party owner and he invite his friends. This one I did for last Christmas, I think. And that's paper where I constantly struggle with a waxy cover. Even now you can see it. It was a big layer of black grape blended with mulberry and other Prismacolor pencils, and on that black grape I constantly have this whitish, you can see it here. Yeah, I touch paper and you can see that this white wax layer, it disappears. So you simply need to clean it a little bit and it will look nice again. But the effect isn't very pleasant. One of my best Christmas works. I remember how much time I spent with this spread last December, but honestly I enjoyed every moment of it. I was afraid what to do with the background because here we have those confusing swirls. In the end I almost blended them with white paint into the background. I do love those excessively vibrant green colors which I selected for the Christmas trees, which are made from ribbons, and I enjoyed coloring various sweets. In the end I have lesser amount of pictures, another background which I did with watercolors, and again you can see that it didn't lay down quite well, some strange stains. You constantly need to control amount of water or pigment when it start to create some pools gathered in one area. You constantly need to move it, or otherwise you will get some very hard borders, some stains, not very nice effect. But the main image I do love. I think that the color of the background wasn't the best choice because it masked those eggs. When they were on white paper, those eggs, they were like focal point, and now focal point definitely those yellow flowers. Maybe I had to select much paler blue here. Page on the right, I even managed to color with budget pencils like Castle Art Pastel Tints. Yes, Prismacolors also, but couple of Castle Arts. And here I have one of my favorite flowers. I think that those anemones, they look amazing. At least I enjoy look at them and I enjoyed to color them. Yeah, that's all for Symphony. Rhapsody is totally neglected, so let me just show you very quickly the current state of the book. Those pictures on the toned paper in the end. Nothing here. It's not like I don't like the book. Again, it's lack of time. those pictures, of course, I want to color them. You can clearly see that in earlier books by K.Egusa, she did thicker lines. Maybe it's not the best thing, especially on flowers, and she used digital duplication. So one flower, she using some digital things, she simply rotated it, resized, and you can clearly see such repeated elements which were digitally replicated. Maybe that's why Rhapsody is my least favorite book, but still there are many lovely pictures. Here I wanted to color it many times, but again, problem of relatively thick black lines, so it has to wait. But here I have this lovely pair of skating foxes. I also think that faces of foxes look quite lovely. I have this big Christmas spread. I can't believe that I did it with Prismacolor pencils. Another one where I am still in love with this Victorian style color palette. Totally unusual for all my Christmas pictures. Oh, I need to color this one. Such a lovely cat, such a lovely jewelry. You know that I love to color jewelry. Well, Halloween picture. Some botanical practice. Here I did watercolor background. Raccoons are really lovely. Halloween picture. There are many lovely pictures actually, and those collage pictures where you can do small element at a time, it's very helpful. I don't know why I neglected it. Maybe I need somehow to note for myself that there are pages with interesting collages, and in such a way I will be able to do at least some progress in Rhapsody. This one I colored a couple of years ago for my birthday. You know that I usually color either kitchen with some birthday party or simply some sweets for my birthday. It's kind of tradition. And one of my best pages here, it's actually title page. Now let's have a look at Menuet. At least this one I colored during this year. In the first part of the book, they actually look very impressive. Many finished projects, which I still love. You can see that when I colored this page, I wasn't able to open it, but with time, maybe the binding cracked a little bit, but now I have this uncolored area, uncolored part of the page, because now I can open it completely. That's a watercolor background, that's pencil background, and on this paper I never mind to do pencil background. It's a pleasure to blend pencils. Just like in all books by Blue Angel Publishing, like books by Jasmine Beckett Griffith, on that paper I also love to do pencil background. Here, gouache and Arctic pencils for the blue background. That's where Arctics are really precious. They cover paper nicely, they have lovely colors, and you don't need to spend the whole Prismacolor pencil. One of my favorite pictures which I ever colored, flower and fruit market. This one is also quite lovely. Starting from Menuet, I would call all pictures by K.Egusa almost perfect. Great compositions, amazing botanical elements, cutest animals. So, Rhapsody so-so, Menuet, Symphony, they are great. where are the next picture? Here I even used a little bit of metallic shiny paints using the black background, pre-printed background, and it was one and only area where I tested polychromasis in this book, and no, there were totally no for this paper. It was a surprise for me because I was sure that with polychromasis I can work everywhere, but surprisingly not in this book. In this book I even don't mind to color such simple pictures where usually I think that it's boring to color ornaments or repeated elements, but I simply and honestly enjoy looking at the book where I have so many completed pictures. It's close to a real book, real illustrated book, so here I don't mind to color every page. It also gives me a lot of pleasant warm memories, because usually here, even if I spend a long amount of time for each of the pictures trying to work on shadows, on textures, on details, but I never struggle, because there are some pictures where I remember how difficult it was to color. In many books I constantly do some wrong color choices, I constantly struggle with pictures, but here the process is very pleasant, so that's why K.Egusa and these books, they are on top of my list of favorites. Together with many other books. Yes, I am guilty because recently I neglected K.Egusa books because of Nelco Neco. I wanted Nelco Neco cats for such a long time, so when I finally received this precious gift, I totally invested all my time into those beautiful pictures. But in Manuet, I can be proud of this page with peonies, which I finished this year. I think that it's quite spectacular. I do love how I did various flowers. I tested several color combos. All look lovely and three-dimensional. And I selected a quite strong color for the background. First I thought that maybe such wallpaper it would kill the whole page, but now I think that it really created good contrast to the rest of the elements. That's my old work. Another old work with Alice in Wonderland. And that's another page which I did this year. Here I practiced how to color pastel flowers, something I managed to do better, like these flowers or orange flowers. Something I still struggle with, like those cream roses, but mostly because of the lines, which I still don't know. Do I want them to be covered or do I want to leave them? If I cover them, flowers start to look very flat. Well, so that's struggle. But I do love my purple peonies. I do love the rest of colors, maybe a little bit too colorful for the wedding flower composition, but as a propose to marry, maybe not bad. Very old work where I did background with watercolor. Now maybe I would select more pale blue, not as intense as I did it. Everything here done with Prismacolors. And that's all. And finally, in this video I will show you Nelco Neco, amazing book. That's all I can say about it. It definitely was one of the happiest moments when I received Nelco Neco book. I immediately started to test paper. I was very pleasantly surprised to discover that here I can work with watercolor and with water-soluble pencils like Inktense. I also tested Prismacolor pencils, which I used for my first page here, we have this pizza party. Of course, I selected it because I'm also a huge fan of pizza. I can eat it 7 days a week, so I can share the joy from doing pizza and from eating pizza. On the next page, I tested polychromases. They also worked well, but I realized that for me slightly easier to work with Prismacolors, especially on the background when I want to add only a very light, delicate background, like shading here around the main objects. So recently I color almost completely with Prismacolors. I had really good progress, really good, 2 pictures more in this book, 3 pictures more. In the autumn part, first I have absolutely amazing steampunk cat. Here I think that I am 100% satisfied with my work, which is quite a rare thing. You know that I love to color metals, so to do those jiggers, it was a lot of fun, quite easy. I decided to practice several types of metals, steel, more like copper, and old gold, something like this. Then I wasn't sure that the color combo for the coat was the best, but now I think that everything looks very fashionable, very harmonical, so definitely one of my best works. And during this autumn season, I did this spread where I discovered that I can work with neo colors, I can work with Inktense, on the trees, on the grass. It saved me a huge amount of time. If I color everything with Prismas, probably I would still color this spread. I think that even pumpkins I did with Inktense. So when I did my quick background, it was a big pleasure to color the costumes of cats. I love how velvety look her head and her coat look. I do love how I did those bandages on Mommy. It was interesting to practice shading on a white fabric here and different color combo shading on white fabric on bandages. Then I colored this relatively simple but very interesting page for Thanksgiving. She's so lovely, so adorable in this costume, and I really enjoyed coloring corn. In Teresa Goodrich books, my corn always look, well, flat and strange, but here I think that corn look quite lovely. I always love to color berries, so I tried to color at least several types of them. Very nice. And I'm currently working on winter pictures, of course. That's my current work in progress. Very detailed, huge amount of time for it, but again, I enjoy every moment. And yeah, very instructive, very interesting to learn how to color new things, to invent new color combos for the unusual bricks, stones, how to color all those shiny bubbles. So I learned something new and in the same time I enjoyed. Well, that's not all my books with cute animals, because of course I also have Mr. Hampson books about Mr. Fogerty, so Frog and Snail. I have books by Tatiana Bogema with mice adventures, but I think that I will include them in the next series. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed myself looking back at all my progress, at all these precious books, because I really consider them as one of my treasures. And I hope to see you very soon with the next series.